Hey folks, it's Zion Prepper again, and I just want to spend a couple minutes with you and tell you what I've learned from the expert preppers out there, and in this case some of the financial analysts in terms of precious metals, and why you should probably have a little bit of precious metals in your portfolio, but also in your prepping stocks. Now remember, you got to remember, precious metals comes in many forms. You have gold, silver, platinum, palladium. You also have other precious metals or metals that are important, maybe not as precious, such as copper. For me, when I looked into it, the two big ones are gold and silver. And silver is the most economical for me, and therefore that's what I buy. And it's also endorsed by expert preppers and financial analysts, because if there ever becomes a time where you need to trade 1 ounce silver, either rounds or silver bars or silver quarters, anything before 1964, definitely makes it worth it and a lot easier to trade in smaller increments. Now, one of the things that I had to really study is the different forms that silver comes in. Silver comes in ETFs, silver certificates, there's even leveraged silver products, bullions, coins, etc. And just kind of a brief description of which each is, and there are more out there. They're derivatives of everything I'm talking about, but this kind of hits the high points. Silver ETFs, that's an exchange traded fund, and it primarily invests in raw silver assets, and basically those assets are held in a trust, and you have a fund manager, so you pay their fees as well. What that ETF gives you is a specific right to a precise amount of silver, and once again, you got to remember, silver is measured in ounces. So an ETF is you own silver through this exchange traded fund, but it's the paper. That paper has to be exchanged for the physical bullion. Now, there are silver certificates. That was a type of money that was printed from 1878 to 1964 in the United States, and it's the paper currency. Now, that's redeemable for the face value of silver dollar coins. Today, in the coin community, that paper is probably worth significantly more than silver. So, but there were silver certificates out there. Excuse me. The other one is bullion, and you can see here that the bullion I have the ingots, square ingots. I have the silver rounds, and you can get ingots and silver rounds from different manufacturers. I typically get mine from American Precious Metal Exchange. You can also buy, this is bags of coins there. There's quarters and dimes, everything pre-1964. Now, one of the things I really looked at, in addition to the types of silver, is why should I buy silver? And I'm a chemist, so you have to understand that silver has just outstanding physical properties that are used in multiple industries, and the demand is getting higher and higher. First of all, the physical properties. Silver is a great electrical conductor, and it's also a good conductor of heat, unlike some of the other precious metals. Silver is ductile, and all that is a simple term that means you can draw it into wire. It's also malleable, which means you can beat it. You can be beaten, or it can be rolled into the whatever shape you need it to be beaten or rolled into. And it's sensitive to light and also the reflectance of light, which in the electronic industry is very important. And probably one of the most important points is silver can stand extremes, extreme temperatures that nature can probably bring to that metal, and it's also very, very strong. Now, the second thing I looked at is, what are the uses of silver? The physical properties are pretty abundant. What are the uses of it? Well, recently we had experience in the medical community with a gash one of my children had in his leg, and he was given a silver-based product because of its antimicrobial infection control property. So what we're seeing in the medical community is they're incorporating it into wound dressings to treat external infections. As I said, it can be used as an antiseptic, a disinfectant. You've also heard of colloidal silver. That's an alternative form of medicine. It's silver. It does contain silver for the same properties I mentioned before. It was used in film, still is used in film. It's used in photographic and X-ray applications. By the way, that's getting bigger and bigger in terms of consumption as well. It's also used in batteries. You have silver zinc batteries, you have jewelry, you have electronics, you have silverware. So the uses of silver are multiple and they're growing, and I've just touched the surface of what silver can be used for. So let's talk about the demand for silver, which was another reason I highly recommend silver. I went to the Silver Institute online because I was curious about the demand for silver. And they state, and you can look this up for yourself, thesilverinstitute.com, is the total fabrication demand for silver grew by 12.8%, which is 878 million ounces in 2010. That's up, folks, by 12.8%. The demand for 2011 is even higher than that. The uses or the applications of silver grew by 20.7%, which means they're finding different uses. We mentioned some of the uses: medical film, more coins for the general public, bullion, silver rounds, etc. Now, here's the big one. I really like that. China. And that's a huge one because China, and these are figures released by the General Administration of Customs in China. Basically what they are, it's just an organization that watches over basically the silver in China, what they import and what they export. And what they're saying is that China exported about 1,600 tons of silver last year, which is down 58% from the previous year. So they're exporting less to the world, but they're importing more, and they imported about 5,200 tons in 2010. So they're exporting less silver, importing more. That's a good thing in terms of the price of silver. So once again, kind of summarizing what I've learned from the preppers out there and financial analysts, why do I have silver in my portfolio, and why is it important as a prepper? Number one, I mentioned it before, it's the poor man's gold. I can't afford $1,500 an ounce, so I like silver because it's something I can physically have in my control and I can own. I just hit number two. I like to physically own silver. You remember in 1933, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, he put a law in place which was called the Gold Confiscation Legislation. And basically what that did was forbid the ownership of gold coins. And that wasn't lifted until 1974. So I like to have that in my... I'm not saying we're going back to that with silver or gold, but in these days and times, it's something I'm not worth taking a chance on. Number three is the instant value of silver. Silver, you know what it is per ounce. You can go to several different sites to look that up. And for example, recently we needed quick cash. I wasn't able to get to the bank. I took about 10 ounces of silver to a pawn shop. And granted, they only gave me 90% of that value, but it was instant cash I had in my hand. It was something they didn't question. And obviously, I bought that silver back the following week. It's easily traded, and that means, you can trade it to friends. You can trade it for work. You can trade it for food. People will recognize it. So it's a valuable product from that perspective, and it's finite. There's only so much silver in the Earth's crust as an ore, which has to be processed, and it's extremely expensive to process it. So it has a finite life. Now let's talk about how I buy silver. I'm not made of money, so I had to find a way to begin to get silver over an extended period of time. How did I do that? Typically, a lot of times, I would only buy it 1 ounce at a time. And I would buy 1 ounce silver bars or bullion or coins. I wouldn't buy 10 ounce bullion. I wouldn't buy 100 ounce bullion. The reason is if I have to trade 100 ounces, how's the person receiving it going to make change if the product or service I'm receiving is not 100 ounces? I buy silver and silver coins. That's what this is. Everything pre-1964. If I happen to get a little bit of tax money back, which I typically don't like to do because it's a loan to the government, but if I get a little back, I take 20% and I buy silver. I've also bought American Liberty. That's an American Liberty there. That was given to us as a gift. So when the kids are asked by our relatives, what would you like for a gift? We usually say something silver because it has value. And I also trade friends or colleagues for silver. I'll do work for them, and a lot of them have some silver. We'll trade in ounces. So my time and also their time is worth something that we both need, which is silver. So let me just kind of sum it up here, coming on 10 minutes. I'm in agreement with all the expert preparators about the ownership of silver, and for that matter, gold. I just can't afford it. And so what I've described in this video is how I took all their expert opinions and implemented an action plan to own this precious metal. Also, I don't like to have all dollars simply because if the dollar collapses, which, if we go to a euro standard, I've read a couple articles on that, that definitely have a huge impact. But just what I do doesn't make it right for you, but I definitely wanted to share it with the community. Thank you.